They had oral sex while I was 300 miles away, celebrating Christmas alone, and I only learned about it months later. My name is Michael, and 4 months ago, at 27, I finally ended a marriage that had been poisoned for 6 agonizing months. Most people think the worst part of betrayal is the act, but the true nightmare is watching the person you love meticulously erase your life, piece by piece, while you try desperately to save a ghost. We were together for so long, years. We were married. Our life was just normal. Not perfect, but it was our rhythm. That was the problem, I guess. It was too comfortable. I keep going back to this one quiet Saturday morning before the new job started. We were just reading, right next to each other, totally content, totally oblivious. That feeling, that peace, that's what made the whole thing destructive later. I never saw the storm coming. I just remember that name now. I can't forget it. If my story is helping you see things, please don't just watch. Subscribe. Let me know where you're watching this from in the comments. I need to feel like I'm not just screaming into nothing. 2 days after she mentioned Ben, it got weird. She just flat out said, "I want to go for coffee with him." Just like that. No reason, no explanation. I asked why, and she just shrugged. It was a strange, cold demand. I didn't understand what was happening. It was the first crack, She was still making her morning coffee in the same mug, but she'd just stand there, holding it, staring into it without drinking. I remember the stale smell of that untouched coffee now. That mug was right there, but her mind was already somewhere else. She was already choosing him, and I just stood there, confused. I was confused, but then I started getting hints, real physical evidence. I looked at Instagram one day. It was gone. All of it. All the old photos of us, the vacations, the wedding album, deleted. She was erasing me. Our history. I'd see her sitting there hunched over her phone, scrolling through new pictures of herself she'd posted. She was making room for a new life, a new story where I wasn't even a character. It felt clinical, a digital purge. That's when the confusion turned into a cold, sick feeling. I was watching my life disappear right in front of me. That week, after the photos were gone, was pure hell. She was a total mess. Crying all the time, she'd get confused, denying that she had feelings for him, but then 10 minutes later, she'd basically admit it. She was wrestling with her own conscience, but I was just watching her choose the feeling over me. I watched a stranger emerge. It felt like a slow transformation, a slow fade out. I couldn't help her. She was 21, and he was only 23. They were so young, and I was just the past she was trying to throw away. December came, and the tears stopped. That was worse. It turned into a cold, calculated wavering. It was a choice, but it wasn't a quick one. It was a long, cruel decision. Me or Ben. She'd look right at me and say she didn't know what she wanted. But her indecision wasn't confusion anymore. It was her choice to hold both of us hostage. She kept our future right there on the table, dangling it. I realize now that the moment she started wavering, she'd already decided to leave. She was just figuring out the easiest way to do it. She was figuring out the easiest way. And then the opportunity came. December 21st, the work Christmas party. I was out of town, which I now know was the key. She knew I was gone. It was like she set the whole thing up in her head. Alcohol, distance, Ben. It was the perfect storm for a turning point. That night, she didn't just meet him, she gave herself permission to go all the way. It wasn't an accident, it was a choice she'd been making for weeks. and I was 300 miles away celebrating Christmas alone, completely oblivious. I was completely oblivious. But that night, I sent her a text, just checking in. I was alone, so I felt like I should. Her reply was late, super brief, cold. I remember looking at my phone, feeling like I'd just hit a wall. In the moment, I just thought, party's loud, she's busy. I didn't know that in that silent hour between my text and her cold response, she wasn't dancing anymore. She was with him. The emotional contract of our marriage, the silent agreement we had, was being shredded while I waited for a simple good night. I should have known then. Later, I found out the detail. It wasn't just drinking. It wasn't just dancing. It wasn't even just a kiss. They had oral sex. That small clinical detail changes everything, doesn't it? It moves it past a mistake, past a drunk impulse. It makes it calculated infidelity. When I finally learned that, it felt like she had taken a knife and deliberately, slowly twisted it. It wasn't the passion of a sudden moment. It was the cold, hard decision to violate our entire agreement. She went home with him. She cheated. It's what she wanted. She came back, and it was like she'd flipped a switch. The air in the house was cold. You could feel it. She was instantly defensive. She started picking fights, being critical of everything I did. She didn't want to look at me because she was ready to leave for Ben right then. I realized her guilt wasn't making her sad, it was making her hate me. It was easier to resent the person she hurt than to face what she did. That coldness was her pushing me away so she wouldn't feel bad about leaving. It was a calculated distance. She was ready to leave for him right away. The minute she got back, she wanted out. But I fought her. I was desperate. Her parents got involved too. We all put the pressure on her to stay. We were fighting to keep her in a marriage she was already mentally out of. That's when the atmosphere changed completely. Every time I brought it up or her parents called, she'd get angry. I remember the sound of her slamming the front door when she'd leave to cool off. We weren't saving our marriage. We were just forcing her to be present. It was an external conflict against an internal desertion. We were forcing her to be present, and for a short time, it looked like we won. She stayed. We pretended things were stable. That was the cruelest part. It was a completely false victory. She wasn't staying out of love or commitment. It was obligation. The marriage felt like a heavy, old clothes she couldn't wait to take off. I was living with a ghost. I tried to reach the person I remembered, the one from that quiet Saturday morning, but she was gone. I was clinging to hope, but she was only being held in place by the pressure we put on her. The pressure worked, but it was just a lie. The whole time we were trying to stabilize, the texts and calls were still going. That secret communication was her lifeline to him. It made her stay completely pointless. Every time I saw her hold her phone away from me, I knew she was maintaining her new life while sitting in our old one. She never truly left Ben's orbit. She was physically here, but she was mentally gone. She kept the door to the marriage closed, but she kept the back window open for him. She had the back window open, and she started using it more and more. She began seeing him in public, just as friends. They went to the theater. They took walks around the city. It was like she was practicing her new life right in front of everyone, using that word friend as a total shield, a weapon. She was acting like I was being paranoid, but she was out there, making memories with him while I was stuck at home trying to fix a marriage she was actively escaping. It felt cruel and exposed. January to June, 6 months. It wasn't a marriage. It was an exhausting, unending game of emotional ping pong. One day she wanted to be with me, the next day she didn't. Every day felt like I had to ask, does she want me? Does she want him? I was just a passenger in her chaos. She was deciding our future based on her shifting moods. That constant pressure was what wore me down the most. I was fighting for someone who had already made the fundamental choice to be free of me. I was just stuck in the middle. I was stuck, but then March and April gave me this cruel illusion. Things seemed to stabilize. We stopped arguing so much. I thought, we made it. We're fixing it. I poured all my hope back in. That illusion was way more damaging than a clean rejection. It forced me to emotionally reinvest in something that was already dead. But of course, the secret texts didn't stop. She was smiling at me, but the whole time she was still maintaining that connection. I was putting in work for a marriage she never intended to keep. I was putting in all that work, but I wasn't the only one fighting for her attention. Ben was relentless. He wasn't passive. He kept asking her out, kept chasing her, kept putting the pressure on her side. This wasn't just a fling she stumbled into. It was a focused campaign to steal my wife. He wasn't giving her space to fail. And that was the difference. While I was trying to save our past, he was actively pulling her into a shiny new future. It was two different kinds of pressure, and his was way more appealing. His pressure worked better than mine, clearly. Then I had to travel again. That geographical distance proved everything. My presence was the only thing holding the marriage together. As soon as I left, it was like the pressure we'd put on her just evaporated. It gave her the wide-open space she needed to crash again. It wasn't about Ben being appealing, it was about me not being there to physically enforce the stability anymore. I was out of town for work, and she was home, alone, finally able to fully choose her escape. That space gave her what she wanted. It was the trigger for her next emotional crash. She started pulling away even more than before. Being near Ben must have completely reignited her resolve. It was the beginning of the end, but I didn't see it yet. I just heard the distance in her voice when she called. She was finally choosing the new life over the old one, and I was just the final obstacle. I was gone, and the marriage couldn't stand on its own without me physically enforcing the lie. I came back, and that was when she finally said it. She looked right at me, and I mean right at me, and said those words. She said she didn't love me. She said she saw no future with me. 6 months of chaos ended with those simple sentences. It was the definitive death of our marriage, but it felt like a relief too. The waiting was over. The game was finished. All that time I wasted trying to fix the cracks, and she was already deleting our life, photo by deleted photo, planning the exit. I was done being wasted. The agony lasted until July 3rd. I reached a point where I just couldn't fight anymore. I realized I wasn't fighting for her. I was fighting for someone who didn't want to be fought for. So I did the hardest thing. I said go. I finally actively let her go. It was the release I needed, not her. The marriage died months before, but on July 3rd, I let go of the ghost I had been trying to save. I chose myself in that moment, even though it hurt more than anything. It hurt, but the relief didn't last long. She moved in with Ben right away, immediately. The speed of it was shocking. It showed me that the 6 months of wavering, the emotional chaos, all of it wasn't confusion. It was just a calculated stall until she could make the transition smooth for herself. The emotional damage she did wasn't a mistake, it was the cost of her planning. She was already mentally living there while she was slamming our door shut behind her. It was the final, undeniable proof of the deceit. It's been 4 months now. The physical pain is gone, mostly. I've gone through the worst of the grief, but the wound that's left is this deep internal ache. It's the feeling of injustice. The worst part isn't that she left, it's the 6 months of lying and gaslighting. It's that they both got what they wanted and they escaped any real consequence for what they did to me. I'm working on myself, I really am, but I can't shake this feeling that the universe should step in and balance the scales somehow. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right, but I am moving forward. I have to. I'm actively working on myself now. I've crossed her out of my life. The whole messy 6 months is finally behind me. I deleted everything. I did what she had done to our past with the deleted photos. I just erased her from my present. That act of self-reconstruction is the only power I have left. I'm focusing on my own strength, getting back to who I was before she brought Ben's name into the quiet normal we used to share. I'm getting stronger, but there's this feeling that just hangs around. It's not grief anymore. It's the residual injustice. It's the core issue. They got their happy new life right away. They inflicted so much chaos and pain for half a year, and there was zero consequences for them. They skipped the hard part. It feels fundamentally wrong. I'm fine, but I can't stop feeling like the moral scales are completely tipped. That's what keeps me stuck, that lack of accountability for the harm they knowingly caused. It just doesn't sit right. I know I should just let it go. I know that. But the truth is, I still want them to get some kind of punishment for their actions. It's not about revenge, not really. It's about the desire for moral accountability. I want Clara and Ben to face some consequence for what they did, for the way they destroyed my life slowly over 6 months. I want the universe to show that betrayal has a price. That feeling of injustice is the peak of my pain now. I need something to prove that what they did matters.
I need proof. I understand that anything can happen in life, but I need stories. I'm searching for evidence that the universe is morally ordered, you know? It's not personal revenge I want. I'm asking, do you have any stories about when traitors were punished for their actions? I need to see that sometimes the ones who leave chaos behind actually pay a price for it. I need to feel like what happened to me wasn't just random, cruel luck. It was wrong, and wrong things should have consequences. That's why I'm sharing all this. It's the only way to deal with the weight of the secret. It's not just a confession for me. I need to take this pain and turn it into something useful. If my story, even the ugly, cold truth of it, helps one person see their own situation more clearly, then maybe it wasn't all for nothing. Maybe my invisibility in my own life can become visible truth for someone else. I'm transmuting the pain into a warning. That's the only purpose I can find in it right now. I need the narrative to shift from "she left me" to "betrayal has a cost." That's the only way I can close it. Because right now, the moral scales are completely unresolved. The feeling of injustice is still hanging here. The story ends, she's gone, I'm healing, but the universe hasn't finished its job. I need the closure that comes when actions lead to consequences. Maybe that's why I remember the quiet Saturday morning before the lies started, because that memory feels like the only piece of justice I can hold on to, the truth of what she threw away. I hope they find their price eventually. That's my final, raw wish.